Welcome everyone to Fierce Female Friday. It is an 11th. It's the Friday before Love Weekend. And we have such an exciting show to share with all of you today. My goodness. So as always, what we love to know is, where are you watching from today? Drop in the chat. Let us know. Are you at home, at the office, in the passenger seat of your car? Where are you watching from? And of course, we love it when you get connected with each other. So if you are looking for a referral somewhere, drop that in the chat. Let us know what your needs are. And if there's something you need help with that's outside of referral, we love to see those too. So we'd love to get you all connected in all sorts of ways. So you've seen the promotion, you know who our guest is, but before we get to our fabulous guest, we've got a couple of updates. For those of you who have just joined the show, you've never been here before, my name is Debra Trapin. I am the executive consultant and chief strategist for the WomanUP movement. I am honored to work with Sara and with Melanie, and we have some really fun shows scheduled for you this year. As you've probably noticed, there is a new flow. Some of our Fridays are Shine a Light on Hers, like today. Some of them will be wisdom sessions. We have coffee and conversations with Leslie continuing this year. Next week is our next one. So make sure you get signed up to attend that. And then on the 25th, we have Julie Lachey Israel, who we mentioned a couple weeks ago. We actually found Julia through the Net 100 list, the fabulous list of amazing, diverse leaders inside the real estate, including Sarah Sudachan, whoop, whoop, and Margo. So we are so excited to be able to shine a light on amazing women this year. If you have someone in your world who you think would be a perfect inspiration to us, please make sure you send her to IamWomanUp.com/share your story. My last update is, of course, you saw the video at the beginning. Please save the date, pull out your phones, grab your calendars, and mark off August 30th, 31st, and September 1st. We are, fingers crossed, going back to the beach in Huntington Beach. So make sure to get that on your calendar. More details soon. Sarah, what do you got going on?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sara Sudachan, Senior Vice President at the California Association of Realtors. I oversee the Department of Member Information, which includes our fabulous WomanUP initiative, but also a lot of other initiatives that touch on DE&I and fair housing. We also have our research and economics function, our steps toward home ownership and transaction rescue, all kinds of things that really encourage member engagement at the California Association of Realtors. So I'm happy to be here, and I am excited because we are starting to get better in terms of COVID case numbers, and that means the masks, the mandates, they're coming, they're loosening. And so what's really excited about California is the masks are coming off, the universal masking, should I say. There are caveats to that, and you know what they are if you're in California, but universal mask requirements or mandates are coming off February 16th, so next week. And unless you live in LA like I do, they're not quite there yet, but we will be there soon. And I'm looking forward to a post-COVID world. And with that, I do want to say there are a couple fun things we got going on at CAR. We have a book club with our leadership team. Otto Katrina is hosting a discussion about The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And we'll post some links in the chat. I know Melanie is on that. We have a virtual Ledge Day, March 2nd. We have a tech experience virtual event on March 9th. We have a steps toward home ownership on April 6th. And then again, willing and able, in-person Ledge Day on April 27th. So those are just a few of the things we got going on at the California Association of Realtors. But I'm going to pass it back to you, Debra, because we want to get into our amazing conversation.
Indeed. And as always, I just have to say, Ledge Day, Leg Day always makes me smile. I'm very excited about that. And it reminds me, dang, I got to get those WomanUP sneakers back on the website, in the store. So I'm going to write that down today so that we make sure to get those back up there. Hopefully supply chain is allowing those. Okay, so now Friday, February 11th, 2022, our special guest is Margo Wheeler-Willis. Margo has proudly worn the Realtor R, and I say Realtor. There's only one A in Realtor for more than 28 years and is a working broker in Tacoma, Washington at John L. Scott's Tacoma-University Place office. Margo is passionate about the industry, leadership, and mentoring. Margo is an RPAC major investor and Hall of Fame member, has served as Tacoma-Pierce County Association and Women's Council President, Washington State Women's Council and Washington State Association of Realtors President, and was NAR REALTOR Party Director in 2018. Margo has been a Women's Council member for 28 years and served as the National President in 2011. Margo currently serves on NAR's Board of Directors and on the Western Washington REALTIST Chapter's Executive Committee. She was born in Philadelphia and is honored to have also served in the U.S. Army, retiring at the rank of First Sergeant. Love that. She is a mom, a proud grandmother, a mentor, a real estate instructor, and fair housing advocate. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show, Margo. So we love to let's start at the very beginning. Tell us about your leadership journey, Margo.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here, for inviting me. I know I'm going to enjoy this chat so very much. But the start of my leadership journey was in 1993. You said 28 years, almost 29 now. Wow. And I started as an agent broker in an independent company. And from there, I actually had an opportunity to try out a lot of different things to find out what was my niche. So I actually worked in new construction for a while, for about almost 2 years. I worked on site. One of my really good friends at that time was a realtor and her husband was a builder. So we worked on site together. I also had an opportunity to work in the company in one of our offices. We had 3 offices at that time. And I was actually a manager in the office, and that was for about 18 months also, just to find out if I would enjoy that side of the business. Mm-hmm. So, and I have to say, you mentioned it already, Women's Council, right from the beginning. Yes. My journey started off in leadership with Women's Council, and it evolved from there into the association. And until today, and today I'm still a staunch Women's Council member and love the organization, our organization, part of our Realtor family.
Yeah. I love Women's Council. We love Women's Council, don't we, Debra?
We do.
Round of applause for WCR. We're seeing a lot of love in the chat. I too had a stint, a very short stint, and to me, I look back on it as a failure, right? Like I was I worked for a commercial real estate broker for a hot second out of college. And I quit right away. Like I was literally there not long at all. And I was so embarrassed about it. But what it did, and looking back, what it did was it made me realize what I didn't want. And I didn't know that at the time. I was a young, college grad. And what I did want was where I'm at today, right? And so I think that was a failure that I faced throughout, and a challenge really that I faced in my career. And I'd love to hear, Margo, if you can share something that didn't pan out for you, maybe a challenge or a failure, and what you did, to get over that. And if you ask for help, I think I would love to know that.
Well, thanks for asking that question, because I think we've all had challenges. Yep. And certainly for me, I think one of those was as a manager? Was that what I really wanted to do? I mean, you mentioned trying out different things, and do you look at it as a failure, or is this part of my journey? Because what I realized, I love training folks. I didn't mind the recruiting portion of it, but what I realized is I could not work with my clients the way that I wanted to. Okay. And so when I had to make that decision, when I came to a fork in the road to say, are you going to continue with managing? Is this something you really want to do? Or do you want to go back to doing what you really are passionate and love about? And that's working with your past clients and building new relationships. And for me, it was about asking individuals that I respect in the industry, talking it over, Gail Hartnett out of Idaho, so many more folks, even my friend who was still doing new construction, and just talking and looking at the pros and cons, and really just looking at the road that I wanted to take. And my road was giving 100% to my clients. And you can't do that if you're managing training and doing everything else, because you can only have so many hours in a day. So that's one of those choices I had to make, one of those times that I faced the challenge. I didn't really look at it as a failure. I think we try different things and we find what works best for us, where we can put the most passion. And so that was one of those. I will tell you about another road that I took that didn't pan out the way I thought it would have. And it could be looked at as a failure, but I don't think so. And back in about 1999, I went in the direction of, I was in leadership, you know, my local chapter at that time, which is now a network, which they are doing dynamic things. But anyway, and I thought, hey, I've also been in a local association president. I did this, I did that. I think I'm ready to go for National Women's Council. I was attending meetings and everything. And so I went before a nominating committee. And of course, you have to go before nominating to see if you can actually run. So in 1999, I went before nominating. I thought I was ready. Of course, they told me I wasn't. So, so I did not come out in nominating. And what I realized is that it was almost 10 years later when I went before nominating again, and I still didn't come out, okay? But at that time, it wasn't because I thought I was ready. It was because other members and leaders asked me, encouraged me to go before nominating. And so even though I didn't come out, I had so much support that I was able to run from the floor, and I was actually elected. So the first time, I really wasn't ready. I really wasn't doing it for the right reasons. It was more about me than it should have been, because I thought I was ready. But when I did it again and was successful, not coming out and nominating, but actually being elected, it was because I was doing it for the right reason. So I think those are two of those times. Yeah.
I think Debra,
like, whoa.
I want to say something, but I know I could feel you. I could feel you. Debra.
Well, no, I want to be very clear with what you just said. So you went in front of the nominating committee, and even though you didn't get that portion of it, that support, you went to the floor and were voted in. That's powerful.
That's powerful. It wasn't about me though. It was a team effort. And I have to say, California, I'm in California's region at that time for Women's Council. It was about Oregon, it was about Washington. And they were the ones who were out there campaigning for me and helping me out. So, and they knew my heart. They didn't think that, you know, this was something that she wanted to check a box on. And Gail Hartnett, and I have to say, you know, we have relationships we built up, and she's been a friend ever since I've been in the business almost. And she was the chair for nominating. And she could not talk to me, advise me, or anything else. And I still didn't come out. And she's still one of my best friends in the world. Yeah.
I love that. You know, in both of those stories that you shared, what I took away from it was the power of perspective, right? And I think I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because like if I had the perspective I had, if I had the perspective I have now when I was 26, wow, watch out world, right? So it's always that, hindsight is 2020. But if you could go back and redo the Women's Council nominating committee, what would you do differently, or how, and I think we can all learn from that process. We can all learn from your perspective on that.
Great. The first of all, let me say hindsight is 50-50, 2020, way more than 2020 for me. But I gotta say that I would not have went the first time because I didn't do it for the right reason. It was all about I thought I was ready. And that was not the way that I should have looked at it. And I learned from that. It was almost 10 years before I went before nominating again. And it wasn't that I changed my mind about the organization. It wasn't that I gave any less. I learned more. I was just as passionate, if not more so. But in hindsight, I wouldn't have went before that because I wasn't ready when I went the first time. The second time, I could not have did anything different because I gave it my all. And because I gave it my all, when I came out, my supporters, my members, our members was like, you're going to run anyway. And so they were like there for me. So, I think that's the only thing that would have changed. I would have just not gone so soon at first time.
Well, can we unpack that? Sorry. I think there's a little echo. Can we unpack that a little bit, Margo? Because I think there's a message that's in between the lines here, because it's not that women shouldn't go out and try it, right? But it was a power in your why. So can you unpack that for us a little bit more?
Sure. The second time when I went forward, my why was fueled by our members and those individuals I was surrounded by, and I automatically knew, basically, Sherry Daniels and so many more. I could say, I could name all kinds of names, but when I went in before and I came out, and anytime you do anything, you're disappointed if you don't come out the way you think. But if you're surrounded by like-minded, positive individuals who understand any organization, it doesn't matter if it's Women's Council or anything else, NAR, but they believe in you just like you believe in the organization, then I think that you can step forward. And I will say that it wasn't as simple as, it sounds simple, but actually there was 5 of us who were running. And out of those 5, it came down to 2. And then out of those 2, I was elected. So I was truly blessed and very humbled, but so many great folks from California, from Washington, from our region, Oregon, Idaho, that were there to hold on and support and campaign. So that was a blessing, yeah. And those relationships are still strong. I see some of their names right there in the chat. So
yes, exactly. I was just going to say that there's a lot of love. I want to flip it just a tiny bit before we move on. And that is, one of the things we've talked about dozens of times, if not 100 times in this community, is that women wait till they're 100% qualified to do anything. They wait until to move forward into leadership, to apply for a job. They wait to be asked to the prom or wait to be asked to be, and now it's changing with the younger generations. But for the older millenniums up, we were taught to wait. And I want to shine a light on the fact that you didn't wait. And although you're realizing, man, it was about me and me making those choices, there's still something so powerful to me when you're sharing this story of, I even know I wasn't ready, but you still did it.
Mhm.
Like that, there's a lesson in there. Like I don't, maybe there's other ways to say it, but I'm so in awe of the fact that this is something that we hear rarely happens, and it happened to you, and you were like, I'm not letting it stop me. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
And then you didn't let not making it through the nomination committee stop you again. Like the tenacity is so beautiful. I mean, just again,
Gumption.
yes, yes. In my world, I like to say the moxie.
That's right. There you go.
The moxie of it all. Like that's
Thank
so
you.
inspiring. You know,
Thank
I think that when it is easy, hindsight is, I love your 50-50. I think that's so good. Like, let's take it to the next level. And yet the boldness that you had then to do that. And I'm so honored to be in your presence. This is so wonderful. You have had many memorable moments in your career. And we love to talk about those. We love to talk about those around here, right? Like we want to be able to celebrate with you, Margo, as you kind of look through the years. And so could you share with us what some of your favorite memories are?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for your kind words. But I got to say that there are so many phenomenal folks that have given me opportunities and shared opportunities with me that it's just been just a wonderful journey. So you asked about some of my favorites. Of course, just as I just mentioned, certainly being elected as National Women's Council president, which it started as financial secretary and it went on from there to president. But I have to say, my children, I won't forget, it was in New Orleans when I got installed, and both my son and my daughter were there to see me installed, and folks from my association had came and also attended. So I will never forget that. And the other thing about that installation, this is Black History Month.
Yes.
And my president, who was only the second African-American president for the National Women's Council, was Deborah Tatum Gilmore from Georgia.
Yes.
And she was so supportive, and she always gave me an opportunity to let my light shine, even though she was president. And I was just so grateful to her. So we were back to back, and we're still great friends. I've sold her son their home when they moved and everything, you know, and now that the grandbabies are there with her. Another one I will say is certainly long after that, being elected as Washington Realtors president. We have approximately 20-some thousand members, and to be elected as president and to serve and be the first African-American to serve as Washington Realtors president. And then for my president-elect, Jerry Martin, to be African-American too. So that was phenomenal. And then of course, the relationships we make over time during our journeys after that, to have Elizabeth Mendenhall, our past NAR president from 2018, to ask me to serve as her Realtor Party Director. And I was the first woman to do that. And that was, we went back to Women's Council. We were on executive committee for Women's Council way back. And so just those relationships that you build up over time, all of those together. And I have to say, it keeps coming full circle because of course, in November, I had the privilege of Charlie Oppler, our then president, asked me to interview Simone Biles. And I will tell you, that was incredible. She is a young, dynamic, professional woman, and she is a GOAT. She is the greatest of all times, men or women, as far as gymnastics is concerned. And so she's so humble, so tiny when I'm not, but that was another thing. And
that was a great interview.
It was wonderful.
It was such a great interview. So much fun.
She was wonderful. She was so kind, and her mother also was just as sweet as could be. And last but not least, I will say that certainly my friend and our next year's president, NAR president, when Kenny Parcell asked me to serve as one of his 2 vice presidents, you know, you can't get any better than that. And he flew in here to Washington when we had snow, Debra,
Oh no!
and came to ask me. So
Came to ask in person?
He did. He wanted to make sure I was well and everything else. So, you know, and then I said yes. So yeah, it was really great. So those are just some of those favorite moments, and some of those leadership, some of the leadership journey that I've enjoyed tremendously. There are many more, because there are so many folks that I love, that are part of my extended family. Certainly Elizabeth, I love her, and Gail, as well as Mabel Guzman, and I saw Betty Tache. We go way back in the chat, and so many more, you know. But I think it's just as much about the relationships you build. So those are some of my favorite moments. Yeah.
You know, one of the most beautiful things that we have seen, that Sara and I have been so honored to experience and see inside this community here at WomanUP, is the helping each other rise. Right. And I love that that's so woven through your story. I mean, I see that Sabrina and Kama are both here, and watching those 2 in their flow together as you know, sisters inside this community, inside this industry, and just like helping each other, shining a light on each other. That is a big part of what that is, you know, what this community is about, right? Helping each other. And Kama put in here, thank you, Margo, for leading the way for so many of us Black women trying to find our way. You are admired. And representation matters. And so we are grateful that you are sharing your warmth and wisdom. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, and thank you, Kama. And when you said Sabrina, you know I love Sabrina. I think we all love Sabrina.
We all love Sabrina.
And you know, sometimes we're a mentor and sometimes we're a mentee, and she continues to inspire and teach me also. So I think I really appreciate the WomanUP community and all that you are doing for all of us. And when you say that images matter, or representation and examples matter, the reason I'm here today, and every time I speak, I have to give kudos to her. When I went to my first national meeting for Women's Council in about 1995, the individual who I saw putting on a workshop was Maxine Jennings from California, the first African-American, who she went on later to become the first African-American president for Women's Council. And so just seeing her there, making a presentation that said there was a place for me in this organization, seeing Joanne Pools walking down the hall and talking, seeing Bobby Williams, who was from Indiana, all of these women, and it wasn't a lot, but it was representation that said, there's a place there for Margo, you know, I can blossom here. And so that's what WomanUP does also. So
yeah. And you know, we have heard so many times in our halls and in our community that I saw it. If I could see it, I could be it, right? And we've heard like, I saw so-and-so on stage, and that means I know I can do it too, you know, and that support and role model, you know, that you are providing. I'm seeing the chat, Margo, that you are a role model and an inspiration. And I love all the love that you're getting. And by the way, kudos to Kenny Parcell for appointing you as one of his vice presidents. So I would love to dive into that. You know, it is Black History Month, but all months should celebrate history of Blacks, and you know, I mean, just the voices, the diversity that we need to see in this industry. So I'd love to tap into a little bit of your mind as you see looking forward, what you're excited about that you're doing at NAR this year for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I am proud to say I'm certified at home with diversity. But in addition to at home with diversity, what excites you about DE&I in the real estate space?
Well, what excites me certainly is the conversations that are going on, that have been going on for the last almost 2 years, not quite, about the changes that are being made, certainly within the industry. And when I think about it, even last year when Charlie Oppler came in and he challenged all of the committee members to take at home with diversity, to watch the implicit bias videos, and to go through the Fair Haven simulation on fair housing. I think that to me set a standard that every president can look at and say, you know, diversity matters. Yeah. It matters no matter whether you're talking about real estate, you're talking about your community. I always talk about the fact that it matters when my grandchildren are bringing folks to my house and they are going to school with folks who may not look like them. All of this matters. And so I think what I'm encouraged by is the fact that more and more conversations have been going on. And I have to say, Stephanie Walker and Shantae Patton-Goler and their race and real estate clubhouse and the conversations that they're having there. I'm also encouraged by the fact that Kenny took time to make a decision about who he would ask to be his chair. And some people will question it, but Lennox will be the chair for diversity next year. I don't know a broker or individual who's more passionate about it. And certainly he has been instrumental in taking the racial covenants out of our deeds and everything else here. And last year offered the At Home with Diversity class free to any of the brokers that wanted to take it throughout his organization. So,
and that's Lennox Scott from John
yes,
L. John L.
That's
Scott.
correct. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you're saying that because he's a white man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
So not everybody knows Lennox. Yeah. We do.
Well, that's right. Sometimes when you think about diversity, you think that it's only people of color that should be the chair or whatever. You also have to look at the heart of the individual and what they're doing, and hopefully encouraging other brokers in the top 75 of what they should be looking at and doing also. So I'm encouraged by the conversations and the dynamic, and I'm just going to say dynamic women that we have that are coming up through, certainly through leadership, that are involved in doing incredible things, amazing things. So, so much. And the At Home with Diversity course, I think, you know, many times when folks go through it, they say everyone should, you know, because it gives you a basis to look at individuals and to understand that it's a business imperative, but it's also important for a life, for all of us to have an appreciation and embrace individuals who may not look like us. So, yeah.
That's so good. Well, you know,
can I just add a shameless plug? And this is kudos to Farrah Wilder on my team, our chief DEI officer. We are having a whole day, Fair Housing Day in May. Fantastic. May 17th. It'll be virtual. So Margo, we're going to want you to come. But it really is about giving realtors the tools, not only to educate on the history and why, but also to be the best realtor and not fall into, you know, the trap of accidentally steering or whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's just about awareness, education, and I love that NAR is pushing for that, and CAR is as well. I'm sure Washington is, and other states are, but the more we talk about it, the more it will happen.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
Good. Well, you know, in our 2019 event that we had down in San Diego, Valerie Alexander joined us again on stage, and she had us all kind of close our eyes, and she did this exercise and walked us through like people walking into the open house, you know, a doctor and their spouse and their child. And then, basically said, what did you think of? Well, did you think of a man when you thought of a doctor? Did you think of a white person when it was the couple? Like, and people buzzed. I think they're still buzzing, almost 3 years later about that, because we don't even realize the unconscious bias. And one of the interesting things I say it'll be interesting to watch Lennox lead that, simply because one of the beliefs we have here in the community and why we are not exclusively women is because we know we need the people who are at the tables. And right now that's predominantly white men. We need them to not only be part of the conversation, but to help us lead it. And because they bring an air of like, okay, so there's a white man leading this conversation, so I can talk about this, right? It's almost like the reverse of what we're talking about with representation, right? It's like now there's a comfort in, okay, this is a conversation I can be part of as a white man, because who knows, maybe they're sitting on the sidelines going, I shouldn't talk about that. So it'll be interesting to see if he builds some bridges around that. I'm going to be watching that pretty close. That'll be very, very interesting. Okay, so we also love to talk about what's ahead, right? So what's coming, and you do run in some very powerful leadership circles, Margo. So what are you hearing about, like, what kind of upcoming challenges or situations should the brokerage leaders in our community have on her radar? What should she be watching for? Is there something that she can do to prepare?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have to say, the great thing about the National Association of Realtors, WomanUP, Women's Council, all of these organizations, you have so many dynamic and, as you mentioned, diverse individuals, and so many of them that are way smarter than me. Surround yourself with those folks. But I have to say, of course, legislative issues, you've already mentioned those earlier. It's so important for us to stay on top of those legislative issues that are impacting our community as well as our industry. DOJ, Department of Justice, understanding exactly how we're going to come out of this for the National Association of Realtors and how it's going to impact us all the way down to our brokerages is really important. And of course, always for anyone who's a broker, and also us who are our sales individuals, it is important for us to understand about the different models that are out there, business models, because they are ever changing. And we have to make sure that we're on top of those and that we're familiar with them for ourselves as well as for our clients. So I love the fact that this is an industry that continues to evolve, that continues to change. And the most important thing is for us to utilize the tools that we have. And certainly in our states, that's our associations, that's our legislative or government affairs individuals who can tell us what's happening close in, as well as NAR and all of the reports and research that Lawrence Yun and company, I will say, that they provide for us. Everything for our business, from knowing what the latest trends are for working with buyers or sellers or housing, to anything else that we can think of. Certainly all of the forecasts. There's just a plethora of different reports that we can go to and continue to educate ourselves, as well as those individuals who are in our officers, for those who are managing. And the last thing I'll say is that attending conferences. WomanUP, certainly NAR, anytime they have a conference, Broker Summit is really important for brokers. And I'm just a strong proponent for education, any place and that we can.
Anywhere, anytime.
Sure. That's absolutely.
I love it.
I did hear you talk about the DOJ, and you're probably one of the only guests that we have that brought that up, but it is a big deal, and it's a big external impact that could face how we are compensated in this industry. And so I do want to give a shout out and kudos to NAR for the resources they have about what is impending. If you go to competition.realtor, They have so many resources and the background on it. And really what it boils down to is realtors are representing people from every single community in the United States. And they are doing the hard work, and let's protect their ability and their value and what they represent to the consumer, to the client. And they are building homeownership one client at a time on the kitchen tables, or in the kitchen, not on the table, but you know what I mean.
Well, there's signing things on the table.
They're signing on the table. They're not dancing on the table.
Right.
Yeah, I think that
Not
was
to closing. Sometimes we do, but what can I say?
it was a really important piece, because it really does boil down to why we are all here. We are all here to serve our customers, to get more people into homeownership and protect equitable access to homeownership. So
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So before we move on really quickly, there's a couple of people who Vilma and let's see, it looks, is it Senia? Ooh, Senia?
yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying that right, but your name is fantastic. They're asking where they can sign up for the diversity certification. So we'll definitely drop a link in, but do you know off the top of your head where they need to go?
Well, certainly you can go to, it's the NAR. If you go to nar.realtor and put in At Home with Diversity, you can find out where the courses are being held. And I see Sabrina just put something in there too, but you can definitely find out where the courses are going. And they're, I will say, probably still about 90% of them are Zoom online. You know, I'm still teaching Zoom, and my first in-person class is going to be in April. And yeah, that's Charlottesville, West Virginia. So there you go.
Fun.
Yep.
Fun. Well, and I one of the things that I know, I mean, Sara has done this in such a powerful way, bringing the California Association of Realtor Brokerage Leaders together and sharing all of the things that you're saying they should know about. And I've noticed in other states, like they don't have a Sara. Sorry, everyone else. However, you do see a lot of more on Zoom. Right. So they're accessible and they're recorded. So don't feel like, oh gosh, I'm behind. I didn't see any of that stuff. Go check out your state websites. Go check out those association websites. Call them up. I'm sure they would be happy to help you find past recordings of what's happening in all of those areas. So don't let that stop you. Please, please, please.
So Margo, our time is short. We could spend all day with you. And before I ask your final words of wisdom, we want to dig into some recs. What are your, favorite podcasts or books that you recommend over and over and over again that you can share with the WomanUP community?
Okay. Well, thank you. As our time is closing out, I will say that books, one book that I am still reading is, the name of the book is Joy. And it is interviews with the late Bishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama.
Wow.
And it is about how to find joy in your life. And so that's one. And I will say Shannon Buss was the one who turned me on to that one from Rhode Island. Also, another one, Kindness Now. And I have to say, Kenny Parcell, he is all about being kind. He is, and that's who he is. That's the nature of who he is. If you are around him anytime, you know that automatically. But Kindness Now, and this is on Audible. I love listening to books just as much as I can sit down, because I'm on the road. I'm constantly on the road. Another one, as far as podcasts, I will tell you that one of my good friends from an escrow company turned me on to the podcast, Therapy for Black Girls. And that's with Dr. Joy Harden. And it is all about personal development, mental health, and so much more. It's about how to be your best you. And so that's a great one. And of course, you can't ever go wrong listening to Oprah. So Oprah's Super Soul podcast, I love it. She has so many dynamic, interesting speakers and books and authors and just life coaches that are on there. And so that's another podcast. And of course, NAR's podcast, they have a lot of podcasts on doing your business, you know, the business of your business. So there you go. Those are a few of them.
Before we ask for your final bit of wisdom, I want to remind everyone, we are going to do an after the show off the record with Margo. So stick around. After she gives her final advice, we're going to turn off the recording and we're going to do some rapid fire. So stick around. This is a
Thank
good time
goodness
to
the recording is going to be turned off. I don't know what they're going to ask.
It's going to be Margo Unplugged. Margo, you have sprinkled us with such, first of all, joy, kindness, and wisdom. I'm going to pick up both of those books, and I'd love to hear, and I know the community would love to hear your final words of advice or just encouragement for the WomanUP community.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure being here. And I have to say, I only have a few things to say because I've shared a lot. Okay. And one of the things I always like to say about leadership is that leadership is not a destination. Leadership is definitely a journey. It doesn't matter where you're at on that journey, but it's constantly an ongoing journey that we're learning and living. It's also, leadership is also another opportunity to empower others. I think mentoring someone else, reaching out your hand, bringing someone else along with you is as important as you're getting out there and trying to be a leader. Because if you turn around and no one's following you, you're not much of a leader. Leadership is really about building relationships. And I have to say that I love that part of leadership. I love that I've had that opportunity. Leadership is not about holding any specific position. And lastly, when it comes to leadership, it is a journey. I say, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Yeah. So thank you.
I love that. Margo, thank you so much.
So beautiful. So before we turn the recording off, we want to make sure that everybody remembers we will drop all of the ways to connect with Margo in the comments and in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to Margo to have a conversation, to schedule her to come to your conference, do something together, we'll make sure to get you all connected. And thank you to everybody who joined us here live. Those of you who are watching the replay or listening over wherever you're listening to today, we look forward to seeing you at the show next week. All right, time to turn off the recording.
Thank you, Margo.